Whoa. New music?
こうして報道された犯罪者を消していってもらう。あとはこのノートお前の好きに。
Oh, there it is.
条件だ。
Conditions,
ライ
stipulations.
トの思惑通りなら、これでミサは助かるはず。お前にとっても私にとっても、これはいい取引。
Who is this though?
お前に言わせれば、いいビジネスというやつか。
He's certainly busy.
犯罪者がキラにまた殺され始めてからもう1ヶ月以上。
New Kira.
私は確信した。ここを出るときは息子と一緒にだ。
局長も意地ですね。
キラなら再び殺人が起きていると知っているはずだが、そうも見えない。
Right?
ひどいな、龍崎。
Ayozawa.
犯罪者が殺されていることを教えてないなんて。
早く返して。ライトに会いたい。ライトに。ライトに。ライトに。
もう3人とも限界って感じですね。
悪いが私にはライト君がキラという自分の推理が外れたのを認めたくないからしているとしか思えない。
やはりそう思いますか。
なんだ。
一度本部に戻ってきてもらえませんか。この件に関する私の結論を聞いて。
Oh, okay. Let's hear it out.
ライト君の父親である八神さんにです。
わかった。
Whoa, okay, look at that reaction. 3 days later?
まさかストーカーさんがこんなおじさんとは思わなかった。
ストーカーではない。私は刑事だ。
まさかね、あんなマニアックな縛り方警察がするわけないし。どっちにしろ解放してくれるのにまだ手足に手錠っておかしくない？
It is strange, isn't it? Ooh. Whoa.
父さん、これはどういうことだ。
やだ、ミサ、ライトのお父さん。
You sure did.
はじめまして、アマネミサです。今ライトの。
Amane Misa.
局長。どうした？早く乗れ。
Okay.
これからお前たち2人を死刑台に連れてある施設の地下に極秘に設けられたその処刑場まで。
死刑台？何を言ってるんだ父さん。
エルは八神ライトをキラ、アマネミサを第二のキラと断定し、お前たち2人を抹殺すればキラによる殺人は止まると断言した。
Nah, they didn't show us their conversation, so
お前たち2人を抹殺すればキラによる殺人は止まるというエルの提案を国連、政府、すべてのトップが
no, okay. There's something going on here.
世間から隠され。
父さん、僕よりもエルを信じるのかも。
エルはもしこれで殺人が止まらなければ自分の死をもって責任を取るとまで言っている。
何を考えているんだ。しかしこれは間違い
No,
ない。
something else is going on here.
エルはなんでこんな結論を。何かおかしいぞ。大体エルらしくないじゃないか。今までのエルは全ての事件で確たる証拠を挙げてきた。
Right? Yeah, that's for
こんな
sure.
形で終わらせる気か。
Is this kind of like to take them to their limit, perhaps? You know? Whoa, beautiful. Love that.
どこだここは。
ここでお前を殺し私も死ぬ。
何を言ってるんだ父さん。そんなバカだ。
いや、キラとは違う。私には親としての責任、刑事局長としての責任がある。
父さん、ミサの言う通りだ。ここで死んでも真相は何もわからないままだ。だったらまだ逃げた方がいい。
遅いライト。どの道お前は処刑される。ならばせめて私の手で。
Oh, he's sweating.
やめろ父さん。僕はキラじゃない。
アマネ、息子と私はここで死ぬが。
Oh, he's talking to her.
殺す道理はない。この車にはそのうち警察が駆けつけるだろう。
If you're care number 2.
ライト。
Wow, they're going to quite the extreme length here.
父さん。
Ooh. A raven. A few of them. He didn't actually. Ah. It was a test, wasn't it? Yeah, look at the relief on his face.
よかった。お前たちを監禁から解くためには。
It was the only way to know for sure if someone's gonna step in at that moment.
お前がキラでないと信じているからこそやったことだ。
はい、迫真の演技です。あれならばアマネが姿を見れば殺せる第二のキラだと。
Right. She would have stepped in then.
前にヤガミさんを殺したと考えていいでしょう。またライト君がキラの場合でも、私の中のキラはいざとなれば親でも殺したはずです。
Yeah. I agree on that.
から演技を見破っていた可能性も否めませんが、私と24時間行動を共にし、捜査協力をしてもらうということで。
24 hours a day. Wow.
分かった龍崎。
It looks so similar there.
キラ。
はい、よろしくお願いします。
Whoa, this is gonna be quite interesting. An interesting phase.
私だってしたくてしてるわけじゃありません。
え、24時間行動を共にするってこういうこと？男同士でキモいよ。龍崎さんってこっち系？
だから私だってしたく
I'm
てしてるわけ
surprised to hear her say that.
こうして自由にしてもらえただけでもありがたいと思うべきだ。
ライトまで何言ってるの？ミサは彼女でしょ？恋人を信用してないの？
君が一目惚れしたと言っていつも一方的に押しかけてきているだけで。
超好きって言われたのいいことにやっちゃえってキスとかしたんだ。
It's turned into a bit of a comedy.
5月22日の青山なんですよね。
That's right.
もしライトがキラだったら？
そうです。
最高。ミサは両親を殺した強盗に裁きを下してくれたキラにずっと感謝してたもん。ライトがキラだったらライトもっと
Right, as she did.
ミサキラ肯定派だし、怖いどころかきっと何かお役に立てないか考えるよ。
Yeah, she showed us that.
邪魔になることがあってもお役に立つことはなさそうですが。
They're so annoyed.
しかしこれだと第二のキラがミサさんであることは間違いないんですが。
Whoa.
桃だとかデートだとかキスだとかミサミサだとかいい加減にして。
As I was at
こ
it.
れはキラ事件なんだ。もっと真面目にやってくれよ。
すみません。
彼女と親密になり第二のキラのことを探れって言うのか？
はい。ライト君ならできると思いますし、そうしてアマネから解明の糸口をつかもうというのも。
いくらキラ事件解決のためとはいえ、女性のそういう気持ちを利用する。
Look at this.
悪いが分かってくれ。人の行為を踏みにじるようなことは僕の中で一番許せない。憎むべき行為なんだ。
I mean, wow. This is.
何かがおかしい。
There is something
性格
wrong.
が変わったとしか。こんなことを演技でできるのか。こうなるとアマネはキラに操られていたという考えだけでなく、ヤガミライトも。これです。地上23階、地下2階。
Whoa.
から見えないようになっていますが、2台
HQ. This is like Stark Towers almost.
すごいな。
皆さんにはできる限りここで生活していただきます。
So he's got that money, man.
増やすことになっても。
ルカ龍崎、その資金どこから？
Yeah.
つまり私はこの事件、どんなことをしても解決したい。そういうことです。
いや、答えに。
He did dodge the
そう
question.
だな。父や僕をこんな目に合わせたキラは絶対許せない。どんなことをしても解決して。
どんなことをしてもというのなら、ミサさんとより親密になり、探り。
それはできない。人道に反する。
Against my honor.
残念です。
Whoa. Okay, is this Yotsuba? Yotsuba.
揃ったようだな。では定例会議を始める。我が四つ葉グループのさらなる
Yotsuba Group.
世界最大の企業にするために誰を殺すか。
毎週誰かを殺すのも大変だな。しかしキラはなぜ悪人を裁くだけでなく、こんな殺人まで請け負い始めたんだ。
キラにとってこれが得になるからに決まってるだろう。
キラの得に。 キラが殺し屋を始めたってことか、樋口。
お前も黙ってた方がいいと思う。あま
あ
りバカだと殺されるから。
キラが一企業に肩入れするなんて変な話だ。どう考えたってこの8人の誰かが
yeah,
キラ
one of
ってこと
them's
じゃないか。
本題だけど誰か提案ないか？我々のリーダ
Whoa,
ー
this is a
のために
new
誰
angle.
を殺すか。
There she
人間っ
is.
て生き物は
So interesting.
実に醜い
Disgust creatures. Yeah. Right then. So at the end there, I really thought that they might use the same terminology, or Rem might use the same terminology Ryuk used back in episode 1, right, of the series, after kind of observing Light Yagami. And he said humans are interesting. I thought they might use the same terminology, but a totally different type of interesting in this case, as in, humans are so ruthless, so cutthroat, so pathetic. I thought, Rem might use it in that sense. But no, she came to that conclusion that they are, disgusting creatures. She just came to that conclusion outright. And, I have to agree. I really do. And, this kind of reminded me of this kind of thing happening in other stories, be it in film or shows or books, beings or aliens, other creatures other than humans coming to the same conclusion that humans are terrible. And each time I hear that line, I do have to end up agreeing, because humans are terrible and are capable of some terrible, disgusting things, right? And you have a Shinigami here saying this and coming to that conclusion after observing these men. More on that later. And, once again, I'm loving the contrast being showcased here between the two most prominently featured Shinigami of this series, right? Of this story, Ryuk and Rem. It's been clear since day one that Ryuk finds humans interesting, right? Like he's legitimately fascinated with their behavior and he gets enjoyment out of it, out of observing them, right? He really does enjoy watching their self-serving schemes or self-serving attitude or plots, right? Again, it's all fun for Ryuk. It's all entertainment, right? He loves that angle. But then you have another Shinigami here who's clearly a totally different type of Shinigami, right? That was established since her first appearance on the show. This is a Shinigami who actually seems to have some sort of morality, right? And that a Shinigami that does find humans disgusting and their behavior disgusting, how low they can go. And, since Rem's first appearance, I knew this is perhaps the introduction to a fantastic new character. And, at this point in time, I'd say Rem is one of the best characters of this story so far, or being, introduced into the story so far. It really is quite nice to see a different type of Shinigami, or it's quite interesting to see a totally different type of Shinigami, right? In that sense, it kind of even makes me think about the past of Shinigamis, right? Or, Rem's past even. But also I get confirmation that indeed there is some sort of grand plan. And this is it. This is Light Yagami's plan, as Rem confirmed, right? She said, if everything goes according to Light Yagami's plan, this is how Misa can be saved, right? So yeah, it's certainly some sort of elaborate potential masterstroke, right? So Rem brings it to one of these men from the Yotsuba Corporation, right? Now, in the beginning, it felt like they're showing me one of their homes. So, yeah, it's clear that she did present some conditions or stipulations, as I surmised. Because other than that, how are you going to get them to do the things you need them to do, right? To sell this as Kara being out there and active. She said, as long as you keep killing the criminals that are being broadcast, you're free to use it in any other manner that you choose, right? So in that sense, Rem kind of brought a business proposal to them, and she said it, right? It's good business. Now, my question here is that, did Light actually handpick the individual it goes to here, right? Did he decide that he's going to take this angle of some high-ranking business official, right? And then target that person, right? Now that he is this new Light. Even though he's not going to remember that whole setup, but I'm speaking of Light before he lost his memory of the Death Note, right? So it'll be interesting to see if he handpicked one of the people from this corporation, Yotsuba Corporation, right? Again, they're introducing this corporate espionage angle now, some insidious behavior going on behind the scenes, right? Taking out rivals and, taking out higher ups to, climb the ladder using the Death Note. But no one actually mentioned anything about the Death Note, right? At that boardroom meeting, it was more so just Kira, right? So one of them is Kira. They certainly, set it up nicely, showed me every single person and their names. So yeah, it appears that now Light and L are going to, team up and essentially take down this new Kira, right? And in doing so, say if they are successful, Light can then, be part of this take down this new Kira. But going after this new Kira, finally gives L a potential opening here in terms of even finding out about the Death Note or something supernatural being in play here, because that was the one thing he just couldn't predict, right? Or kind of just know about. That's the one thing he simply could not know about. Yet now there is an opening here, in taking down this new Kira. It's possible that he could find out about the Death Note, because at this point in time, Light Yagami does not even know about the Death Note, right? At this point in time, he is just Light Yagami, who's part of the task force. So this could be that opening L might need, if indeed, they end up taking down this new Kira. And I feel like that is part of the plan, originally before Light lost his memories, that, once he loses his memories, then, as Light Yagami, he can do his part on the task force and take down the new Kira, right? Perhaps showcasing the downfall of the Kira, or of the Kira, right? And then, somehow get the Death Note back through this, recovery plan of his, whatever it might be. So yeah, it's certainly a risk. He certainly took a risk, in going through with this plan, but it's quite the plan. It's certainly quite the plan. Now, I think, beyond that, of course, the revelation of the new Kira. Now, they made it clear that the Death Note was in play again in the last episode. Now, I know the new Kira is one of these boardroom members, right, of this Yotsuba Corporation. So let's see how that plays out. I'm sure in the next few episodes, I'll get to see the team investigate and get closer and closer, right? But, the other two major scenes, or major, segments of this episode are, the car ride, and the hotel room scene, right? Those are some substantial things come out of this, right? Now, the car ride itself, wow. I mean, Chief Yagami, Yagami-san. If there's one person, like I've said before, if there's one person you really do have to feel bad for, it's Chief Yagami. To be in this position, and to do something like that, or the situation getting to a point that he has to do something like that. Yeah, Chief Yagami. He's also so impressive, right? That was clear from the beginning. That he's all about the process. If there's even a 1% chance of something, that he'll take that angle as well, right? Just to make sure. So yeah, that car ride scene was quite a tense situation. Now, it was clear from early on in the scene that, of course, this is some kind of ploy. That, of course, the UN and the police didn't agree to okay this. That was clear, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't a tense situation, because, us as the audience knows for a fact now that both Misa and Light don't remember anything about the Death Note at this point in time, or the Kira killings. I mean, they know Kira is active, but they have no recollection of being part of that, right? Now, at one point in time, or at one point, Misa told Chief Yagami that if he goes through with this, that he's no different than Kira, right? And, he replied, saying, no, I'm nothing like Kira. As a parent and as the chief, I have a responsibility, right? That's such a powerful line of dialogue, isn't it? As a parent, he feels such immense responsibility for clearing his son's name, right? Or going to extreme measures to clear his name or to make sure that he's not Kira, right? In the last few episodes, they set up that this is so difficult for him. He asked to be confined, right? And because he doesn't quite know how he might act, And again, Al brought up that notion that I thought of the possibility that you could even maybe kill yourself and then kill your son and then kill yourself if you do find out that Light is Kara. It certainly felt like a last resort, right? Extreme measures had to be taken, and he was ready for it. He was ready to die in an attempt to potentially prove that his son isn't Kara, because El firmly believed that given the fact that Misa has or harbors this unnaturally strong love for Light Yagami, and that they have surmised, or he's quite sure that she is Kara number 2, she would have jumped in. That was a risky part of this, right? That she would have jumped in and killed Light's father to save Light. And in addition to that, he also believes the Kara he knows, right, is capable of killing even his own father to protect himself, right? So he can continue on his path, on his crusade. And I like I said, I agree. I've been saying this for a long time. If it got to that point, I could totally see Light, writing down his own father's name. So yeah, massive risk. It is such a massive risk they took, and the fact that Chief Yagami was down for this, that tells you quite a bit about his character, right, as a person. Now, of course, no one ended up dying. Chief Yagami is safe, even though you see how relieved he was at the end of that, right? Again, that took quite a bit of toll on him, right? Again, they've shown us that he's experienced a heart attack, right, not too long ago. So imagine being in that kind of high tension situation. Wow. I mean, Chief Yagami's got to be careful, right? So yeah, at this moment in time, both of them are kind of off the hook, right? Yet they're not out of sight or out of mind just yet. Misa is certainly under surveillance because she's, regardless of her not doing anything in that moment, she is still the prime suspect. They had her as Misa number 2, as Kara number 2, right? So that's undeniable. There's so much proof for that she has some kind of attachment to Kara number 2 that they can't just let her go. Now, all of this kind of has me thinking of a potential endgame, or a potential, Chief Yagami finding out that indeed his son was Kara this whole time. Now, I can't see something like that happening until perhaps the conclusion of the series or near the conclusion of the series, but I am thinking of how that could play out if he does find out at some point, and the consequences of that, and how he's going to react to that. Because, they've shown us just how much just the possibility of Light potentially being Kira has affected him, right? Chief Yagami, that is. So yeah, I am thinking of that, and it goes back to that notion again, that he's the one person I really feel bad for in all of this. Now, of course, that whole gun in the face and about to shoot him, quite a tense moment. And, at this moment in time, Light and Misa both legitimately had no recollection of being, Kara or Kara number 2 or Death Note and killing people, right? So it was real for both of them, especially Light, who has a gun pointed at him by his own father, point blank. So yeah, that might have been, or that must have been quite an experience, right? Now, before I go any further, even though it's a blank at that range, surely that might do some damage, right? In terms of your ears or your eyesight. Again, maybe I'm nitpicking, but just a thought that came to mind, because it was quite close to him, point blank. Now, right, this is now it's getting into that territory. Do I feel bad for Light Yagami in that moment, and even Misa in that case? But more so Light Yagami, because he had to go through this. And, by putting him through this, they're trying to see if Misa, who has this unnaturally strong love for Light Yagami, might step in as Kara number 2, right, and take action. Again, didn't end up happening. But Light, that was legitimate terror, right? He faced that moment as Light Yagami, who has no idea about being Kira. So do I feel bad for him in that moment? Again, it starts going into that aspect of, Light made himself forget so he could appear innocent, but in doing that, he actually does appear to be someone that's innocent, right? So it's one of those gray areas now, right? But at the end of the day, you have to remember that this is all some elaborate plan. Yes, at that moment in time, he is someone who has no idea about any of that, right? But that's by design. He knew that this is how it's going to play out before he lost the memories, right? He put this whole grand plan into motion. Again, I believe it might end up being a masterstroke, but that doesn't mean he didn't predict or anticipate that it is going to go down like this. At that moment in time, he's innocent, yes, but it's all by design. So I can't quite say I felt bad for him per se. I certainly felt more bad for Chief Yagami. That's for damn sure. But again, it's that train of thought. Now that he doesn't remember that or have any memories of that, was it Light Yagami who killed all those people, or was it Kira who killed all those people under the influence of the Death Note, right? Then that takes you to another angle, right? Did the Death Note actually corrupt him so much to a point that he essentially became a different person altogether, right? Yes, okay, the Death Note certainly had some effect on him, that's for sure. It played a hand in corrupting Light Yagami. It has some supernatural pull to it for sure. Now, as showcased in these last two episodes, and this episode specifically, it appears that you could even make the case that he's objectively a different person without the influence of the Death Note, right? You could make that case for sure. Here's the thing. I think it's a mix of two things. Yes, I believe that Death Note had an influence on him, that it did play a part in corrupting Light Yagami. And I think that's probably true for every Death Note user, that the Death Note does have this influence, right? And the capacity to corrupt the user, right? But then you have to be susceptible to that as well. I think Light Yagami was I think he was more corruptible than the average human because, they established that he's different. He's really different from most people. They established in episode 1 that he thinks of others as lesser than himself, that, society is rotten. So, the Death Note and Light Yagami coming together, that kind of, it really was the perfect storm, right? And, they made it clear that he didn't try to resist the allure of this power, right? At his fingertips, all of a sudden, he got consumed by it by the end of episode 1 even. So, yeah, and another angle to look at here is, say he had no, recollection or no memories of the Death Note. Do you think that Light Yagami, if he was to come across the Death Note once again, right, no prior knowledge, do you think he would act in the same manner as he did the first time he came in contact with the Death Note? In my opinion, I think it would be exactly the same if he came across another Death Note once again and had no memories of his prior experiences with the Death Note. Now, but at this moment in time, he's firmly part of the task force, and this version of Light actually kind of despises Kira, and isn't that so interesting? He essentially despises the person he became himself as Kira, right? So he's later on in that hotel room scene, he's describing things that he despises and that he could never forgive the person that put him and his father through this. He could never forgive that person, and that he is going to help bring them to justice. He's speaking of himself as Kira, right? As a user of the Death Note. So that's just fascinating here, that this Light Yagami essentially despises the Light Yagami that ends up, becoming Kira. And it certainly presents a yin and yang situation here, right? That's quite the interesting question here, right? Is the Death Note completely responsible for turning Light into this idealistic, psychotic individual who has a god complex, right? And that he is justice incarnate, right? That he is the right form of justice, and anyone else who stops him from that path is the enemy as well. I'm sure a lot of people believe that the Death Note is completely responsible for, you know, putting Light Yagami on that path, but I believe that he certainly had those qualities within him, and coming across the Death Note kind of brought them out, right? Brought all the terrible qualities to the forefront. This Light Yagami that I see in the car and in the hotel room, even that Light Yagami isn't quite the same Light Yagami they established in episode 1. And I'm speaking of Light Yagami before he came across the Death Note. He was cold, he was distant, right? He did feel like others are lesser than himself. He's above others. That he does have this ideal sense of justice, right? And that, society is rotten. This is not the same Light Yagami I'm seeing here. The Light Yagami I'm seeing now is quite a likable Light Yagami, that's for sure, right? But those qualities are not depicted in episode 1 of the series. But then again, that was the thing, right? It happened so early on, him coming across the Death Note, that I didn't really get to see the different aspects of Light Yagami. Death Note actually, was the final push in terms of turning his idealism into pure obsession, right? A lot of interesting angles to take there, but all that being said, aside now, it does give me such an exciting prospect. It shows me the type of Light Yagami that actually could have been, or they might actually show me how it would have been. It gives us such a fantastic alternative or what if situation if Light Yagami was this individual who has the same sense of justice as his father, perhaps, or L, even though L is a totally different animal as well in that case. But this Light Yagami easily can be a friend to L, right? Remember they brought up that concept that that these guys could be friends, right? In a different life, in a different reality, right? In a different situation, they could have been the best of friends. Here it is, right? I'm getting that what if situation. So in that sense, I'm quite excited about these next few episodes. But again, there's that lingering thought in my mind, that sooner or later, he is going to return to that old Light Yagami, because no chance do I believe that he gave up the Death Note. He's too intelligent, and he must have had a grand plan of action, right? And it's put into motion at this moment in time to recover the Death Note at some point, but not just yet, right? At first, there has to be this, this situation has to play out that he is going to assist L and the task force in taking down this new potential Kira. But as far as they know, this is the Kira, right? Now, he's going to be all in. He's going to be part of the task force, and he'll firmly believe that he's helping taking down Kira, right? Is that going to fool L? No, I don't think so. There's a different issue Al is tackling at the moment, but he firmly believes, I think, he is on that path that something is off here. Something is different about Light Yagami's personality, that both Misa and Light might have their memories altered somehow, right? Something's missing here. Al knows this, right? But yeah, I feel like his plan was to frame someone, essentially, put this on someone else as them being Kira, and then, in that time that he's not Kira or Light Yagami that has Death Note, he'll help take that Kira down, right? So yeah, that aspect I am excited about, to see this Light Yagami collaborate with L. Now that takes me to the other major segment of this episode, the hotel room scene. Now, the tone of this scene is quite a relaxed one, right? Because of course, both Light Yagami and Chief Yagami are out of confinement at this point in time, and for the time being, cleared, right? And I say for the time being because L is still firmly on the case, right? Yes, there's a relaxed tone, and there's even a comedic tone. And it was kind of jarring even because not too long ago, both these characters, Misa and Light, are out there killing people, right? Yet, there's this really comedic tone here, and like a happy tone, almost, relaxed, right? So that scene, even though there is this relaxed tone underneath, the investigation continues for L, right? He knows there is another angle he can take here, or many different angles he can take here, right? Because to him, it's clear that something is off, that this is not the same personality. Like his personality has completely changed, right? Again, playing into that notion that you could objectively or you could argue that objectively he might even appear to be a different person altogether, without the influence of the Death Note. And L notices this for sure, and he's already kind of clocked that something is off here, because it's for a long time now, going back to some of the earlier episodes, as they're first establishing L as a character, he had a profile, a psychological profile built for Kira, which then applied to Light, as Light became his prime suspect as Kira. So these things are not matching up anymore. Things have changed. And, I think a few things actually became crystal clear because of the things Misa is saying here, right? And you can see that L is still on the investigation, or he's still, trying to get things out of Misa here. And she straight up gives him so many things here that make things crystal clear, right? He even said, it's so clear that you are Misa number 2, or you're, attached to being Misa number 2. So much so that I might not even believe it at this point. But yeah, he knows that she saw him on May 22nd in Oyama, I believe the place was called, right? He knows that it was love at first sight, yet she doesn't quite know how she knows Light's name, right? Now this is an exciting opportunity for L, because now he can start putting these things together. She was able to know his name, yet she doesn't know how, right? Again, the audience knows how. Because she had the Shinigami eyes, so she saw the name, but since that aspect of it is out of her life at this moment in time, she can't remember. So L is gonna make note of this, right? And he could apply it to things he might find out later. And for L, there's more new information here, because Misa straight up told them that she's grateful to Kira, because he did bring the person who murdered her parents to justice, right? So that explains to L for sure that, okay, this is the reason she seems to have such an appreciation for Kira, right? And then of course the whole love at first sight aspect of it. And she straight up even told him, yeah, if he was Kira, I would love him even more, right? So it's trying to explain this unnatural love she has for him that L has already caught on to, right? And of course he already figured out that or he was so sure that Kara 1 and Kara 2 have made contact at this point in time, and that it happened on that day on May 22nd. So he knew that Light met Kara number 2, and later soon after that he figured out that Kara number 2 is Misa, right? So that aspect is still there. It's not like L forgot anything. He knows these two are right there, prime suspects for Kara 1 and 2. But now the new challenge for L is trying to figure out, how come everything seems so different, right? How come Light isn't fitting this psychological profile he has for him, that he firmly believes in, right? That's the new challenge for him, trying to find out how this happened. And, speaking of this psychological profile he had for Kara and Light, that is, he knew Light has this manipulative side to him, right? Like he noticed that. He knew that's one of the things he has in his locker, perhaps, right? Yet this new Light Yagami is completely against manipulating people's feelings. He said, to take advantage of another person's feelings, personal feelings, is the most despicable thing anyone can do. It's unforgivable, right? So, L is probably just standing there baffled because, once again, Light Yagami is manipulative. Kira is manipulative. And he's essentially describing the things he did as Kira, right? Light Yagami did as Kira. He took advantage of Naomi's emotional state, right? And he took, and he used that against her, right? And he did the exact same thing. He certainly put that manipulative angle into motion the moment he found out that this other, Death Note user happens to have the Shinigami eyes, and she's obsessed, right? And she'll listen to anything I say, and he put that into motion. And, Misa actually even gave L, she wasn't talking to L or speaking with L, but, her, outburst against Light about, using that moment or taking advantage of that moment to kiss her, that does not sound like the Light Yagami that I've just, talked about totally being against manipulating anyone's feelings, personal feelings in that manner. So L is seeing this play out right in front of him. So he's getting a direct insight on how these two used to interact, or how Light used to manipulate her, maybe, before, this turn of personality came about. So yeah, Al is certainly still firmly investigating, right? Underneath it all. So that's about it for this episode. Interesting episode, quite a good episode, to be honest. I set up a lot of things for the next arc, I believe, or next phase of this series. And I am excited to see how Light Yagami handles this, or how this plays out. Again, before he somehow recovers the Death Note and those memories, maybe even. So I am excited about this next phase of seeing Light Yagami, because the Death Note is out of the picture at this moment in time, and he has another challenge, right? That was one of the things I felt that was clear a few episodes ago, that he wasn't challenged enough as this intelligent individual, right? So now he's firmly in there. He's part of the task force, and he's laser focused on catching Kira, right, and being as helpful as possible. So I'm excited about that aspect for sure. And before I sign off, earlier on I mentioned that I firmly believe if the Death Note fell to him again at this point in time, that he might go down the same path again. But there is another thing to bring in here, because now at this point in time he's firmly part of the task force, right? I meant if he wasn't part of the task force and hunting down Kira, essentially hunting down himself, right? Or the person he created himself, essentially. It is a fascinating topic, isn't it? The influence of the Death Note and how much of an influence it could potentially have in corrupting the Death Note user. And of course, this new corporate espionage angle, that could be quite an interesting one for sure. If it is actually this hand-picked individual, whoever it ends up being out of that, round table, it's a good choice. A slimy, greedy, cutthroat businessman, right? It's a good choice if it is handpicked. So let's see how that plays out. I'm quite excited about this next phase. So if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like. Consider dropping some comments. Give me your thoughts. The comment section for this, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, give me your thoughts on the matter, on Light Yagami and the Death Note, and how much it corrupted Light Yagami, or how much of a role it had to play in it. Of course, you've heard my take on it. I would love to hear your take on it. If you're interested in early access to the next episode right now, or maybe even full length to this episode right now, consider checking out the Patreon page. The link is in the description. It's in the pinned comment alongside links to my social media. Again, just an option for anyone who might be interested in content beyond the scheduled content on the channel. So yeah, that option is there for you if you are interested. So that's about it for this one. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your time. And I hope to see you again soon. Until then, take it easy.